Okay, so I thought I'd talk about my progress on Level. So far I have got the schematic ported over to KiCad. In the spirit of being more open source, I moved it all over from Altium to KiCad, so it's easier for you to look at now if you don't own a copy of Altium. I also changed the license on the whole project from GPL v3 to MIT, because I think the MIT license is a little more flexible. And I also have made a bunch of progress on the firmware. I pretty much finished the hardware abstraction layer, which is on GitHub now, and I've also got a mechanical mock-up for an enclosure that is also on GitHub. Take a look at that real quick here. This is what it looks like. Basically, it's designed with mass manufacturing in mind, in that it is able to be die-cast, and it does a couple different things. The main idea is the board kind of sits right in here, and then these little pegs are tapped, so then there's a bottom part that screws onto this whole thing. And these little channels and stuff in here are to separate each of the different frequency domains that this thing is working in. So there's the ISM, like 900 megahertz that the CC430 is operating on, and then there's the local oscillator, which can be anything over a very large range, and then there's the mixer that combines them, and then there's the output that's a different frequency. So having all of these little channels in here, this whole thing is going to be made of aluminum, and these metal walls are going to be touching on the next version of this PCB. There'll be these little conductive pathways around the outside of each of these sections, so it'll essentially form a little cage around each of the individual parts of the circuit. And then this whole thing also prevents any interference from coming into the board, and it'll also help some thermal issues, although there aren't really any thermal issues. It doesn't really get very hot, but hopefully I can kind of use this whole enclosure as a heatsink as well. So that's the mechanical design. I'm planning on getting at least an ABS 3D print of it soon to make sure everything fits, and depending on how much that costs, maybe I'll do a metal print or machine it myself or something, I don't know. So I have code now that works, and I can show you that right now. So this is the board powered up and ready to be programmed. Now, I know that it's plugged into an Arduino right now. Do not get confused. This is not an Arduino Shield. It has no need for an Arduino. The only reason it's on there is so that it can be powered. That's the only thing I'm using it for right now. It's being programmed by this, which is MSP430 programmer thing that works over JTAG, and this is one of the things I'm going to replace in the next revision of the schematic. Right now the programmer uses this thing called Tag Connect, which is a really cool, like, headless way to program a board, but it's not that widespread, and I kind of don't want people to have to buy this special cable just to program it, so I'll probably remove that in the next version. But I've also got a tap plugged in here to the output of the CC430. So now I'll show you it actually transmitting. Okay, so I don't have a spectrum analyzer access anymore. So instead I'm going to use my USRP, which is good enough for showing at least that it transmits. Ignore the quadrature and stuff. This is set up for capturing digital stuff, and right now this is pretty much just sending garbage. But you will be able to see the power level go up and see that there's stuff happening. So here we go. And there it is. So at least it has a little bit of life. So stuff left to do so far. Well, I need to finish finalizing the schematic for the next revision, which will hopefully be the last. And that's going to involve replacing the mixer to be a little bit wider frequency range, and changing out this programming header, like I said, and doing some filter work. And then the layout will hopefully not be too painful, because it'll be using the same basic layout, except got to add in those new parts. And I'm also going to add these kind of shielding areas for the mechanical enclosure, like you saw. I have not transmitted between two of these things yet, because I don't have two of them that are assembled and working yet. So I've still got that to work on, and of course lots of code and random things to get done. But I am making progress, and it's coming along.